All right, look, studies have shown that eating more protein tends to help people be more satisfied. But does this mean eating a low protein diet leads to overeating? A new study suggests, yes, that's the case. In other words, if you don't eat a high protein diet, you are far more likely to overeat.
Yes. Doesn't that seem satisfied? A bit obvious?
It seems obvious, but what?
There's only 3 macros. So
I know.
If you get rid of the most satiating one, chances are.
However,
your options are slim.
What I like about this and what I like about scientific studies is that they'll take something that seems obvious and then they'll test it just to make sure, because sometimes you get results that aren't what you would expect, right? There could be another variable or something else that's going on.
Bum, 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 bum.
I know.
Water is wet. Water is wet.
Yes, I know. But they did a study. They did another study, and it was pretty well made. And it, in fact, does show what we would think would be the result, which is if you eat a low-calorie diet, you're just more likely to overeat. So in other words, if weight loss is your goal or trying to avoid being overweight, and we've said this a million times, you want to eat a high-protein diet. Low protein it makes us overeat. Now, there's a lot of theories as to why this may be the case, and it's probably, this is the leading theory, which I tend to agree with. There's no way of knowing for sure, but I think because of the way we evolved, that our appetites were regulated by foods that tend to have more or less nutrients. And the most nutrient-dense foods on Earth, the most nutrient-dense whole foods, I should say, on Earth, are meat. Like if you ate a bunch of meat, the odds are you got all of the essential nutrients, proteins, fats, both essential, plus micronutrients and vitamins and minerals. And so I think when your body, we evolved to where our bodies sense all this protein, and then our appetite gets tamped down because our body's like, okay, we don't need to spend so much energy seeking food at the moment because you probably got everything you need, versus I'm eating a bunch of berries that I found that are growing wild, or maybe some roots that I found that are wild. And because my body didn't sense the protein, it also knows, well, those foods have some valuable stuff in them, but they're probably not getting our essentials. So let's keep the appetite high so that the person is driven to search for more food.
I think there's some behavioral aspects to it too. Like, so we recently talked about how, we'll just go on a diet where I'm just going to focus on getting protein. That's my rule right now.
Yeah.
Let's just make sure I hit my protein take. One of the things that I noticed when I do that, if I tell myself, that there's no restrictions. Like I can't not have something that I want. The only rule is I have to make sure I get protein first. It limits my options a lot of times. So in other words, like let's say it's, middle of the afternoon, I already had lunch. It's going to be probably 2 or 3 more hours till I get to a dinner, and I'm starting to get hungry. I'm driving from point A to point B. It's like, if I make that rule to myself that I have to get protein first, it's not as simple as just like pulling into a gas station and grabbing a bag of chips or nuts or something. So I feel like there's a behavioral aspect of that when you're targeting protein, because it's harder to find like protein rich meals in comparison to carbs or saturated fat. I find that also plays into a role of helping you stay within your calorie. Do you think it has?
I do. I think that's part of it, but in the study, they're not
accounting for that.
Yeah, they're not working with people who are like making this rule. What they're finding is just people who eat more protein tend to not overeat, and people who eat less protein tend to overeat, right? And they control for lots of different factors. Like you could have someone who eats less protein, but also has maybe an eating disorder, so just eats low calories and all that stuff, but they're controlling for all this stuff. And so the first thing that you said about like, I got to hit my protein targets. If you do that, and if you give yourself no limitations, like you're like, okay, I can't, if I want ice cream, so if I want ice cream, I'll eat it. But I know I'm supposed to get 30 grams of protein
first with
this meal.
Yeah.
So let me eat my 30 grams of protein first, then I'll eat my ice cream. You're probably going to eat less ice cream or not eat the ice cream at all. It just leads to, behaviors that lead to less chances for obesity and poor health.
I don't even think it's. Oh, sorry, Justin.
Oh yeah. Did the study account for it being animal sources, the protein versus plants, or was it just like any protein in general?
Any protein in general. However, plant proteins are harder to come by, as high protein foods as a percentage of total calories.
a lot of volume.
Yeah, so like, what's a good high protein?
Did you see that viral tweet that someone did about broccoli, comparing broccoli protein with?
Like you could assimilate all that in
Well,
one sitting.
Not even that. Like, you know how many pounds of broccoli you got
it's like a whole bush.
equate
It's
That's the part that annoys the shit out of me, because people will be like, well, legumes are high in protein. Yeah, for a plant food, but to get
you
30
explode
grams
too with gas. But
like 30 grams of protein, like you'd have to eat a ton of beans, and that would come with a lot of other stuff, right? Eat 30 grams of animal protein, and especially if you get a lean source and it's like a small piece of like chicken breast or something like that. And if you want to make it fatty, you can, but that's the point. The point is, if you're seeking high protein plant foods, it's going to come along with a lot of stuff and a lot of volume and a lot of that other stuff, where with animal sources, it's relatively easy. It's dense is what it is. It's just very, very dense. And then that digestibility, like eat 200 grams. Like, so I'm 200 pounds, right? So if I aim for 200 grams of protein from plant sources, and I don't use protein powders, because you can get plant-based protein powders, which makes it a lot easier. But let's say I don't. I'm like, I want to eat 200 grams of plant protein. Oh my God, you know how much volume and all the fiber and other compounds in the vegetables that are going to make me just bloat, and it's going to be just a challenge. 200 grams of animal protein is hard to get, let alone plant protein. So that's really about it. But I mean, if you could do it, I guess you can, and I'm sure some people do better that way. But again, it's another study that shows that there's a strong connection between low protein and overeating, which supports what we already know, which is protein is satiating. It just makes you not want to eat more.